Hey guys.
Hey.
So welcome back to the How Much Do They Make series. Now today you are in for a treat because we have a special edition today. We've had quite a few of our subscribers say that they want to know about what it takes to become an accountant, how to get into accountancy, and also how much do accountants actually make. And so we thought, why not? We couldn't think of anyone better to do this interview than the humble penny himself, as you guys fondly refer to him as Ken. He's obviously transitioned from last year to becoming a full-time entrepreneur, running a business full-time, but he has worked his way up to become a CFO in his role, and we thought he'll be the best person to interview.
Yeah. Excited.
So, hi Ken.
Yes.
It's so funny.
This is going to be so weird. So I'm excited. Being interviewed by my wife, so this is going to be fun. So let's do it. Let's talk about it.
Cool. So Ken, give us a background on what you did for a living when you were an accountant and for how long.
Yeah. So the background is, my roles as a chief financial officer was the last job I did, like you said, before I quit and focused fully on the humble penny. But my journey actually started in 2006 when I started my training contract as an accountant. But before that, and I guess we're going to go into that, I began that training contract in 2006 and have worked my way up from being a trainee accountant. I qualified in 2008. I finished the exams, first time passes, finished early in 2008. Then kind of officially qualified in 2009. Then I got made redundant as soon as I qualified, which is just a complete blow after 3 years of study.
Yeah.
And then I went into financial services as my chosen industry because there's a bit of money in that industry. Worked as a management accountant and have then worked my way up all through the years to become a head of finance, financial controller, finance director, and then chief financial officer. So
Wow.
in terms of the time span, it's gone from 2006 to 2020, so 14 years of essentially a career in accountancy.
Wow, you've been very busy.
Yeah, exactly. And you've been with me on that journey for 10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been interesting going on that journey and you kind of seeing how I've kind of developed, isn't it?
Wow, so we're going to get into this into more details.
Yeah.
Tell everyone how you actually got into, accountancy.
Yeah, so this will shock you. So I actually did my A-levels were in maths, chemistry and biology.
Yeah.
Which, if you come from an African household, parents always telling you, go and become a doctor or a lawyer and so on.
Yeah.
And my dad and my mum wanted me to go down the medicine route. So I did maths, chemistry and biology, and I got an A in maths, B in chemistry and C in biology, which is not too bad for someone who, as at that time, I'd only been in the UK for two and a half years thereabouts.
Yeah.
That's completely fresh. Call it fresh off the boat, as it were. Fresh off the boat. And, I did year 11 and then went into my A-levels.
Yeah.
Then my teacher at the time said to me, look, you did really well at maths A-level, really, really well. It seems you have something for maths. How about exploring the financial world, exploring banking or actuarial science or accounting and things like that? And I thought, okay, I'll give this a go. So I went through clearing, which a lot of you will be aware of. It's a process, if you didn't apply to a particular course, you can go through to apply almost like an emergency to try and get into a uni. And I got onto a course called, at City University of London, I got onto a course for single honours economics, which is a huge departure away from maths, chemistry and biology.
Yeah.
Went on, first year, started, first term even, and I failed so badly. Remember the lecturer saying to me, you're just going to completely fail at this.
Wow.
And so it was a really difficult time for me. I actually then took a year out, reapplied, and came back in 2002 to begin a joint degree this time round of economics and accountancy. And just had a completely different strategy of just focusing, no partying, no ACS and all those things that people have at uni, none of that stuff. Completely just stuck with my fellow geeky friends and focused for 3 years and completely aced it, got a first class degree. And
I was super impressed.
Yeah. So for me, that was a huge deal. This is a huge deal because I didn't have anything to my name beyond my biggest achievement as at that time, which was to have a driver's license. And so this degree was the big thing, because I wanted to prove to a future employer as a young black man in London that, I had more to me beyond usual expectations.
Yeah.
Like I could, get a first class degree, which no one in my family history, by the way, had ever gotten. And
so tell people very briefly your strategy for getting a first class degree and also for passing all your ACA exams first time round.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So this is a hard one, really. So a big focus for me was waking up early. So I'd wake up around 4:30 a.m.
Share that, guys.
Turn on Classic FM.
Yeah.
And Classic FM was my thing. I just loved not hearing anybody's words. I just wanted to listen, just hear the music, and just study for about 2 hours before I'd either have to go off and do a part-time job, or because I couldn't get student loans back then. Complications, that's a different video.
Yeah.
So I was working to try and pay my tuition fees, and at the same time, either I was working or I was at class. So it was just that. My strategy was try and get 70% and above every year for 3 years. So first year, I ended up in fourth in the year.
Yeah.
In terms of I did these rankings. Second year, I ended up second in the year.
Yeah.
And in the third year, I ended up top 5 in the year.
Wow.
And so altogether, like a weighted average thing, I was like an honors first class student.
Amazing.
And yeah, that's kind of my thing. And then as soon as I got that degree, the challenge then became, some of you who might know exploring accountancy, you need to get what's known as a training contract. And there are different qualifications. So I have one called the ICAEW, which is the ACA qualification, which is what they say is the hardest one. Lots of FTSE 100 directors or chief financial officers have that qualification.
Yeah.
And so for me as a black man, back then, I didn't know anyone who was an accountant. I didn't know anyone who even had this qualification. So I had so many rejections, applications upon applications upon application of rejections. So my strategy was then to apply to a medium-sized kind of top 20 firm. And I got into a top 20 firm, eventually got 2 offers.
Awesome. 2 offers, guys.
Yeah, 2 offers eventually for a training contract. Yeah. And again, my strategy became try and make it, because if you don't know, for a lot of guys who don't know, when you work for a medium-sized or a large firm, you get sacked if you fail the exam. So basically, you lose your job for failing the exam. And it was part of the training contract. So my strategy for 3 years was not to fail a single exam. And I did not. For 3 years, I went again solid, and qualified in 2008/9. Which again was fortunate for me. The medium-sized firm that I joined got acquired by a top 10 UK firm.
Yes.
And so I then became somebody who qualified with a top 10 UK firm.
Awesome. So tell our subscribers, what does a day in a life look like for an accountant?
Yeah, there's so much to this, but I'm just going to talk about it from my perspective as a chief financial officer. And this would differ for different people.
Yeah.
But when you're in a leadership role, a senior role, you're let's say a Monday would typically begin at the weekend by you checking emails, which, to be honest, I really hated doing, because it was again infringing on personal life. But you'd have to check emails because there's some things that might be urgent to look at. But a lot of the time, a typical day is spent attending lots of meetings. It could be board meetings, it could be team meetings, things like that, just so that you know what the leadership think in terms of the people above me, above the CFO role, what they think. We need to be our priorities, and how we then communicate those priorities to our team members to kind of get the results, kind of get work done. Other parts of the day will be focused on things such as reporting. So a lot of the life of an accountant is spent on reporting, i.e. we have things called month-end reports, so kind of focusing on reporting to the board of directors. Then we have quarterly reports, to maybe shareholders. Then you have reports annually for your financial accounts and things like that. Then other bits of my day are spent on, so all the stuff I've been talking about is backward-looking information. So a lot of an accountant's time is focused on looking at past information and performance. But a big part of a CFO's role is focused on the future, so planning, kind of looking at doing things called financial models, trying to figure out scenarios for things, and to help the board make better decisions. So a lot of my time essentially is spent in either meetings or managing team members, or doing kind of Excel work, but at a much higher level.
Okay. So what were your hours like on a typical day? What time would you start and what time would you finish?
Yeah, so I typically leave home around 7 a.m. Look to get to the office around 8:30 to begin work. On a good day, I'd get home around 7:30 p.m. in the evening. On a really bad day, if there are some deadlines and things like that, or if there's a massive project, I might get home around 10 p.m. So it was really, really long hours. And,
It was.
You
I
obviously remember all of it.
Yeah.
And so you would see again for a lot of that work, there's a huge compensation attached to that, which we can talk about.
Okay, so what top 3 things or habits would you say helps to make you a success at what you do?
Yeah, I'd say the key things that helped me kind of thrive in that role or survive even were, number one, having support skills. So by that I mean being a support to the leadership, the chief executive specifically, acting in a partnership capacity as best as I could, and being able to manage that relationship. That's the first thing. Second is communication skills. So by that I mean knowing what to say and when to say it and when not to say stuff, because there's a lot of sensitive information. There could be price sensitive, market sensitive information, knowing who to say stuff to. For example, if you go into a board meeting, when you come out of that board meeting, being aware that not everybody in the room outside of that board meeting knows what's been discussed in that board meeting. So being able to communicate what is necessary to the right people at the right time. But also tied to that communication skill is a skill around managing your superiors. So in my case, it was a board of directors, it was which included obviously a chief exec and people like that, and a chairman, but being able to communicate to them when things are coming up. So for example, what are the key deadlines? When are we, what's the budget looking like? How are we doing? How are we performing against budget? Being able to book meetings, board meetings, being able to let them know how projects are progressing and communicating that effectively without them having to chase me to get answers for those things. And I'd say a third would be negotiation skills. So beyond just being able to negotiate my own remuneration and package and things like that, but also being able to almost arm wrestle with a very entrepreneurial CEO, for example, who has some good ideas about things that should be done, but being able to negotiate and manage the expectations from the leadership, but matching that off against the available resources. By that I mean available money, available team members and time and stuff like that. So yeah.
Okay, so did you need, or did you find that you needed additional training, or did you have to read quite a lot of books to help you feel like you were, doing well in your role?
Yes, I was always reading stuff. So you find that when you get to, accountants, when they begin their careers, they tend to focus on technical skills initially. But as you start to move into more leadership roles as an accountant, you need more softer skills.
Exactly.
So you notice that all the stuff I've mentioned, like communication skills, negotiation skills, team management skills, which I didn't even mention, it's another one. All these are much more softer skills because you're managing people, you're managing people's personalities, you're managing their workloads and stuff like that. You're managing people who are more senior than you. So I had to do a lot of reading, and I had CPD days, which are continual professional development days. Obviously, I also did an MBA. I did a master's in business administration, an exec MBA at the Judge Business School, University of Cambridge. Again, to learn how to kind of fit into this role and develop the confidence that was required for it.
Awesome. What did you love about your role as a CFO?
So I'm not going to lie, I loved the perks. So there were good perks to being in that job. I was well paid. I also loved the responsibility and the leadership attached to it. For me, I thrive a lot in environments where I'm being pushed outside my comfort zone. You know that as my wife. Like,
100%.
I just don't major in comfort. Like I'm out there doing stuff that just really pushes me and forces me to learn the hard way.
That's right.
And also, I think the third thing is I really enjoyed the complexity of the job, because a lot of the time I'm like, I'm outside of my kind of area of comfort, and I love being in board meetings where I was the youngest person in the boardroom, most of the time the only black person in the boardroom, and seeing people who are like, being on FTSE 100 boards and, people like that being in the room, and I'm sitting at the same table with them and we're all talking, and I just loved hearing their wisdom and hearing their experience and hearing just how they think about things and how they solve problems and stuff like that. And a lot of the time I'd keep quiet until I'm given the opportunity to speak, and then I'd speak up, with my own level of wisdom. And so that was really what I enjoyed about the job. I'd say I loved about that role.
So what did you find to be the most challenging aspect of being a CFO?
Yeah, there are many things here. I'd say the biggest challenge for me was managing the kind of competing needs of different senior people. So different stakeholders. So you have a chief exec who wants one thing, you have a chairman who wants another thing, then you have a board of directors who wants something else, and you have your team kind of below you who want other things, and then being almost that conduit in the middle and being able to manage their competing requirements whilst also having constraints of this is how much money we've got, we can't spend more than this is our resources and stuff like that. So I'd say that was the hardest bit, to be able to manage all that and keep everybody happy. And that's difficult. Lots of times when you can't keep people happy, and that has consequences and stuff like that.
So you mentioned, because I know already, because obviously I'm your wife, but you also, your role wasn't just confined to being a CFO. You also had other responsibilities, didn't you? So can you?
Yeah, so exactly. So when I mentioned about having limited resources, I had other hats that I wore as well. So for example, I had part of my role was to look after compliance. So I worked for a regulated business which had a regulator, the Financial Conduct Authority, which meant that there was certain, I had to learn new things about being wearing this hat as kind of head of compliance and things like that. So you had to learn about reporting requirements and how to just almost technical aspects of a job that's outside of a finance remit that I now had to learn as well, and also HR and IT things. So like learning about IT systems, learning about HR rules and how those rules, like deciding employee policies and coming up with a student handbook, not student handbook, the employee handbook, stuff like that, coming up with what goes in it, negotiating with lawyers to draft it. These are all things that are completely outside my comfort zone, but were essentially became a part of my job description, in addition to being a chief financial officer, which is usually focused on strategy and finance and budgeting and planning and things like that. There are also all these other roles that I had to wear hats for and deliver on whilst also doing the regular day job.
Did you enjoy that, or was that just like, oh gosh, not more?
A lot of it was a pain in many ways, but at the same time, because I relish in just challenges and trying things, I wanted to be able to say I had done them. Like for example, I wanted to be able to say I'd learned how HR worked as a function, and a lot of those skills have been helping us running our business now, the Humble Penny, because I understand how those business functions work, and I've been able to speak to various external parties to come up with policies and processes and systems and stuff like that. Being asked to do them exposed me to almost got my feet wet in a way, and I had the key thing is responsibility. Being able to be, Ken's name is next to that thing, he is the person to go to, and there's no hiding when your name is next to something. If you're responsible for something, you're responsible for it. And I think that forced me to really just own certain things and just learn how to juggle multiple responsibilities at the same time.
All right, so let's talk money. So how much did you actually make monthly and annually as your role as a CFO? And from what sources? I'll
give you the journey as well, because like when you say numbers, people are like what, really? Basic income was around £140,000 as a basic. But then there are other things that really dictated that number and dictated the total compensation, because the total compensation was definitely more than 140,000.
Because that's quite a good basic already.
That is a really good basic. I never ever dreamt of ever being on that basic ever, and I'll explain why in a minute. But a lot of factors go into how that number comes about. This kind of your experience level. So how many years of post-qualification experience do you have? Obviously, I qualified in 2008, so you can kind of do the maths from there. What city you're in. So being in London gives you more of an income as well. What industry you're in. So I worked in venture capital, which is asset management industry, forms a part of that. So again, that already adds to what the possibilities are for income. And obviously the role, the levels. I worked as a chief financial officer, which then again dictated that. But apart from that basic income, there are then things that add to the compensation, such as pension contributions and health insurance and a bonus and stuff like that. And even something else called a carry scheme. So the carry scheme given the type of industry I was working in, was really where the real wealth creation opportunity was. So just to give you a kind of a rough idea of what those sort of numbers could be, if I'd stayed with a business, for example, or if somebody in that typical role stayed with a business where a lot of the wealth is being developed from investments, they can expect to make anything between 1 and kind of 3 to 5 million pounds of wealth creation opportunity.
Wow.
if the right investments kind of come about, and then get sold, and wealth is created.
And so, also they would have had to have been in a company for how long?
They would have to have been there for at least 5 to 10 years.
Wow.
At least, you'd have to be there and create the wealth with the team to earn that. So really, that 140,000 was really kind of like, okay, here's your basic, but the real kind of carrot to build wealth was actually waiting for the opportunity for investments to be realized and stuff like that, and for wealth to be created as a team, and that wealth to then be shared and stuff like that.
So the kind of industry that you work for definitely determines like how much you make, right?
Yeah, because a lot of accountants wouldn't make anything near some of the numbers I mentioned, because they might work in, say, the music industry, or or in the film industry. The people in the film industry actually make quite a lot of money, or they might work in just other industries, but they're also accountants. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
But there are also accountants that make way more than what I've quoted. So they've got chief financial officers making multiple 6 figures or even 7 figures and things like that, depending on what level of organization they work for. So if they worked for, say, a FTSE 250 or a FTSE 100 company, they'd be making a lot more than that. But the structure, what we call almost the VIP package, will still be the same, in that you have basic salary, you have bonus, you have share options, i.e. sharing profits, you have pensions, you have life, death in service benefits and health insurance and stuff like that. The compensation will be quite similar in structure, but might vary then depending on where you are.
Cool. And how much can an accountant expect to make once they've qualified? I
started off in this country, in the UK, doing various manual jobs, like low-paid jobs. I worked as a cleaner. I used to make £80 a week. That was the pay, right?
Yeah.
Then I qualified and did my degree, became a chartered accountant, a trainee accountant. I started at around 26 to 28,000. That was the pay. Per annum, which for me was huge. It's first ever proper salary. 28,000, and then I carried on for 3 years to become qualified. And when I qualified, I started to make about £42,000 per annum, something like that. And then obviously I wanted my income to grow, and I really wasn't gonna, I got made redundant as well, so I left. Then went into work in financial services and started to make around 50-something K. And then I stayed at the same company, had multiple promotions, and income started to rise to 60, 70, 80 something thousand. Then I became a finance director, and then my income went over 6 figures. At this point, I had to work. This is very important to note. I had to go and do 3 years at Cambridge. Got negotiated funding, and we used our savings. We used our own money, half of the money to almost 35,000 of our own money to fund the thing, my MBA, and did that to be able to become a senior finance professional, to give me the leadership skills I needed in addition to what I'd learned from my job. That then gave me kind of a 6-figure income, and then that carried on to grow essentially. So that's been the journey. So it's important for me to share that aspect so that if you're somebody who's considering a career in accountancy, that don't see what I'm mentioning as the top level. It could be a lot better than that, but it could also be a lot lower than that, depending on where you are, what industry, what kind of pathway you followed to become, potentially a chief financial officer.
Good. I'm sure a lot of people want to know, and your thoughts. Do you really need an MBA to kind of, propel your career?
The answer is no. You don't. You don't really need an MBA. But I'm going to be really real with you guys. You can't overlook the fact that I'm a young black man, and I needed everything on my corner to give me every opportunity. So even though I had a first-class degree, even though I had first-time passes to become a chartered accountant, even though I had all these years of experience and all these things, and I could kind of fight my way into and kick many doors and try to get in. I still felt I needed something else. I needed to be in a different environment, to be challenged in a different way, and the exec MBA just gave me that, almost icing on the cake. That gave me that edge. So when I got into a room, it was kind of like, yeah, okay, this is it. I've got something beyond everything else I've had so far. Not almost like another string to your bow that gives you a bit more of an advantage. And that's helped me so far. And I'd still recommend it to anybody who, especially if it's funded by your employer or part funded by your employer. I'd still highly recommend doing it.
But you had to make a proper case for it, didn't you?
Yeah, I had to write a business case for it. I had to do a presentation to my employer. I had to negotiate. They'd never funded anybody before. They funded me. This is my many years ago. They funded me £30,000 as a contribution towards my MBA fees, as well as travel costs. And again, that took learning those negotiation skills. And those negotiation skills came from me reading books. A really good book, I should mention, is a book called Getting to a Yes. Getting to a Yes is a really good book to read for learning how negotiation skills work and in getting you your answers to get you to where you want to get to ultimately.
So what is the maximum income potential for somebody who is an accountant?
Wow, so that's actually really interesting because it can vary so widely depending on so many things. So what industry you're in, what city you're in, what path you took to become an accountant. Because for some accountants, some people went via a degree and then followed the path I followed, whereas some people didn't go via a degree, which is what makes accountancy a really attractive path to follow. But in terms of potential, you can go on to become a finance director or chief financial officer for some of the largest companies in the country, or even some of the largest brands around the world. You can work for example, the FTSE 100 and places like that. And the earning potential there is hundreds of thousands of pounds, or even into the millions when you talk about total compensation for a chief financial officer. You're essentially a member of the board, and your compensation goes beyond just basic pay. You likely have share options, you'll be remunerated through ownerships because you're now becoming a part of the actual business itself. But it's just worth mentioning that it's a very small percentage of people who actually get that opportunity to get there, because it's just the way it's always been. Traditionally, it's been a particular type of person. You've rarely had, being absolutely frank, on this channel, you've rarely really had, call it, say, black men or black women, or a very small percentage of ethnic minority groups kind of hit that level where they are in the FTSE 100 or FTSE 250 and they're earning that big buck. So an alternative way to kind of still hit those income potentials is to take the skills you've learned in accountancy, which are essentially business skills, and take those skills and start your own business, which is what I'm doing here with the Humble Penny. You and I are using the various skills that we've acquired on our journeys, and I'm applying my accountancy skills, which are essentially business and leadership skills, both technical and softer skills, to essentially run our business and take it to, hopefully one day become a global brand in many ways, reaching millions of people. So anyone watching this, they too can do the same thing, where they can take skills that they've acquired in accountancy and use it to kind of boost their earnings in a massive way without necessarily having to follow the traditional path.
Awesome. So do you have any plans of increasing your level of income, and if so, how?
Yeah, so a thing that I'm always very fascinated about is trying to diversify our income a lot more. But beyond actually diversifying our income, maybe even earning more over time, a big focus for me, for us, is really about giving back. So we've got in mind, and we were talking about this earlier today when we had a meeting with YouTube and our kind of cohort people, that our big focus for us is to look at different ways we can give back. So things like the Humble Penny Foundation, some stuff that we're kind of planning for the future will be a big way in which we're going to consider giving back to various initiatives, to partner with various organizations. So for me, it's not just about wanting to earn more, it's really about how is earning more helping you achieve more, essentially.
Yes, awesome. And it's about purpose-driven.
Yeah, it's completely purpose-driven. How is that able to allow us to do more because we're earning more?
So, what top 3 pieces of advice would you give to somebody who wants to become an accountant and earn what you're earning and potentially more?
Yes, if you want to hit those sort of income levels, I'd say you need a career game plan. It's the first thing I'd mention. And the way you start to put together a career game plan is to have a mentor. So one thing I did, which was a tactical thing, was to get myself LinkedIn Premium. Paid for LinkedIn Premium for like 12 months and used that as a way to reach out to people who are chief financial officers to kind of say to them, look, you know, I've got this aspiration. I'd love to kind of meet you for a coffee, even if it meant that, I'd buy you a dinner, whatever, just as a way to kind of get to know people who are in those roles. So that'd be the first thing. And today it's a lot easier as well with a lot of us kind of operating on the internet. It wouldn't be very inconveniencing for someone to meet you online and offer you some guidance and stuff like that. So number one is to have a career game plan. And number 2 would be seek out mentors, which is tied to that point I just made. Seek out people who you can learn from, because the scene's always changing, and there are different challenges and different practices for people who are in senior finance leadership. The role is evolving over time into things like cybersecurity and things like that. There are different aspects to the role. So it'd be very good to really piggyback onto a mentor. And the third I'd say is just you've got to really be bold about wanting to get there. Because it's easy enough saying you've got this ambition, but you've got to be that person who's fearless enough to leave an employer if you're not just getting what you want out of that role. Being able to quit your job and move on to a different employer because you believe enough in yourself and what skills you've got, what abilities you've got, it's actually a really powerful thing. And tied to that self-belief is continually learning. I know you said 3 things, but I think this 4th point is really important. Always seeing learning as a lifestyle and seeing growth, personal growth, as a part of what you need, whether it's in your career as an accountant or whether it's in your life journey entirely in building and having various forms of successes. Personal growth is actually really, really important for helping you continually push the boundary and push yourself outside of your comfort zone.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's talk personal finance. How would you describe your personal relationship with money?
Yeah, this is a bit of a funny one. I'd say that my personal relationship with money is at a good place at the moment. It has been evolving over the last decade. There's still so many areas that I'm still working on. So, for example, in the area of giving money, I give so much of my time, my talent and things like that. I feel that there's still a lot of room for growth when it comes to me actually giving a lot more money itself. And I see that as an area in which I'm still evolving in my understanding of how generosity works and things like that. So that definitely remains an area of continual learning for me. And growth,
So I know you've touched on this already on quite a few of our videos, but for people who are watching this for the first time, what can you say that you've learned from your parents growing up about money?
There's so many things. So I'd say the first one, and this has come from my mum specifically, is this idea of just being enterprising and just really taking some risks. Because it's one thing just talking about wanting to achieve things in your life, but if you don't take a risk to see whether those things might become a reality, nothing actually happens. And so for me, I'd say, although we started off financially from a really kind of a place of scarcity, as it were, not having a lot of money, seeing my parents take leaps and actually try things has been a privilege, because I've seen them do stuff, and that's given me the confidence to kind of think, well, actually, with my siblings as well, we can actually make certain moves and see ourselves move forward. So that'd be the first one. The second one would be not relying on just one source of income. I never forget my mum saying to me when I was going off to train as an accountant, she said, well, why don't you start a business and hire an accountant? Why don't you just do that as something to do? Which at that time I hadn't quite understood the mindset. I hadn't quite gotten what she was talking about. But it has been our fascination almost, this idea of thinking, well, if we earn £1, how can we take that £1 to generate another source of income? What could we start to invest that money into for something else to happen? And I'd say the third thing I've learned from my parents actually is about generosity. So again, I point to my mum specifically growing up, and she's been able to help so many people, whether it's family members, strangers, and it hasn't always paid off, by the way, because not everybody really appreciates being helped in different ways. And also there's a journey around generosity from the perspective of we always think that when we're being generous to people that we are helping them, when in actual fact the big part of being generous is actually about us, our journey, and kind of having more inner capacity, almost expanding our inner capacity. And so for me, that's one thing I've learned from my mum is about this act of generosity, but kind of seeing it beyond just helping somebody else, but actually helping ourselves as well.
Yes, awesome. So this is an interesting one.
Yeah.
So what do you currently spend most of your money on per month? And what do you spend money on to treat yourself?
Yeah, it's weird having you ask me that. Yeah, you see it all. So we invest a lot of our money, big proportion, at least 60% of our net income is invested. But in terms of expenses, and this is not really an expense, but we spend on education for our children. So our kids attend a private primary school, and only doing that really because the primary schools near where we live, we're not quite at the standard we wanted them to be. The secondary schools are great, and they've got grammar schools and stuff, but the primary schools are not quite there. So we chose, you and I chose to make the investment and to commit to doing it and seeing it as an asset class, which has really committed us. So it's all about parents, children, and the school. So this triangulation. So we're fully committed to our kids' kind of their development. It's a strong partnership. So that's the first thing. Second thing we spend money on is on traveling. But obviously the last 2 years we haven't gone anywhere internationally because of what's been going on around the world. So
nearly 2 years.
Actually, it's nearly 2 years in the summer. And obviously with result of that we haven't spent sort of traveling money, and so that's meant that we've been saving a lot more and investing that money or using it for other purposes. The third thing would have been housing costs, but obviously we no longer have a mortgage anymore. That money is now being reinvested into other things as well. So the key thing really is education followed by travel.
So but how do you, Mr. Humble Penny, you work very hard, guys.
I do.
How do you treat yourself?
Just the odd things, like the odd kind of meal out or ordering some food in. That's we do that once in a while, which I really quite like doing. Or I may buy, a gadget here and there. I haven't bought anything recently. Like I saw a bag. I've always wanted to buy like a nice kind of leather bag, but then I think to myself, I'm not going anywhere. What do I need this bag for? I saw like a travel review thing. This guy who runs this YouTube channel called Passport Heavy was doing this video. I was watching him, and he was recommending this bag that stops people kind of pickpocketing you and stealing your stuff. So, and I thought this might be the bag for me, man. I've been looking forward to buying like a nice travel bag, but then like I can't go anywhere, so I haven't bought anything. I used to I like these kind of watches, right? So, I used to in terms of wasting money. We can talk about this later.
That's another conversation.
That's a different conversation.
We'll point you to a video what was it called? Worst purchases we made in our 20s.
7 worst purchases ever in our 20s. You should watch that video. I'll put the links below. But I used to buy jewelry and stuff, but obviously many years and I haven't bought anything. And I like these £50 watches, which which are just really quite cool for what we do.
A lot of people are going to be asking you.
I'm gonna have to call the brand, right, and just say to them, you're gonna have to sponsor our channel, man. I'll wear your watch on every single video. So this is probably it. It's just simple things like this. But nothing really out there, which kind of makes me feel like my life's a bit boring. There's all these things that I could be doing with money, but I just don't do them because I bought an iPad. Actually, did I buy the iPad? No, the iPad was a gift. I didn't buy the iPad. I bought you an iPad, but that's it. So not that many things. Maybe some equipment for stuff, for some of our filming and stuff, but beyond that,
guys, really, Ken buys books every day.
Oh my god,
literally Amazon. I'm gonna have to suspend. No, it's great to read. We're so big on reading, but literally he buys every day. We get a delivery for
Amazon
a book.
delivery. I forgot about
ridiculous,
that. So that's the thing. So I buy lots of books. And you're right. There's no day that we don't get an Amazon delivery for a book. So, and I guess because I really just enjoy
reading.
Just reading, and just building my creativity through reading books.
Cool.
Yeah.
So can you think of a specific money mistake growing up that you kind of have maybe regrets or that you wish you hadn't done?
Oh man, there's so many. I mean, like we said, you can watch that video before, but there is one specific thing that I've never really talked about on this channel or anywhere before, which is around my journey towards becoming a British citizen and becoming a dual citizen. So I'm both Nigerian and British by citizenship.
Yeah.
And the journey towards arriving at that's a whole different conversation. It's just not even going to talk about it in great detail, but that journey cost us tens of thousands of pounds, and a lot of that money was wasted on like lawyers who just didn't know what on earth they were doing, and so many mistakes. Anyway, it's just a long story, but if I had to pick out a money mistake, it would be just being set back. We were set back many years ago by basically money, like a lot of hard work went into earning that money, but the money being wasted on basically the wrong people and stuff like that.
Gosh.
But yeah, beyond that, I'd say just, spending on vanity items, like I mentioned earlier, like buying a really nice car and stuff like that. Yeah, things that I look back on with shame. But then again, like, it was fun when I was doing it. Like, I was having some fun,
I guess it's something you have to go through.
Yeah, everybody does.
You've got it out of the system, we hope.
Yeah.
Cool. So what would you say is your ultimate financial goal?
Ultimate. Woo!
Ultimate.
This is a biggie. Yeah, so this question, right? Usually I'm like hearing other people answering this question. I had to think about it for myself. And it's very interesting because this video is about how much do accountants make and so on. Our journey, personally, as a family, we've become financially independent. And that's kind of really helped us tick off many goals. Become mortgage free, become financially independent, done all these things, which is great. But what that has shown me really, when I kind of look inward as to what I believe my core financial goal is, I've noticed that goal has become more about other people. So just to explain what I mean. So we've got two core communities within, well, there are three, but there are two present communities within the Humble Penny and our sphere, Financial Joy Academy. There are the people who call our fearless dreamers, the people who read our blog and who consume our content and who are ready to go on that journey towards financial independence. They're starting to have some changes in their mindset and stuff like that. Then we have the dream makers. This is the second community, who are the people who are our people at Financial Joy Academy. When I think about my long-term financial goals, and obviously this because like we talk about this all the time, our mission really is to help those dream makers of FJA become what we're calling dream architects. By that I mean we want to help them become people like us, essentially, who are helping other people help make their dreams become a reality. So we think of financial independence as way beyond just I now want to win my time back, or I now want to just relax, and I want to travel and stuff like that. We see it more as you've become a catalyst. Right? A cap's been taken off, and you now have the possibility to become an enabler in other people's lives. Kind of doing quite similar to what we're doing, spending a lot more of their time enabling other people. So when I think about my long-term goals, together, this is where my mind is kind of how do we get to those 10,000 people and beyond, helping them become enablers for other people. But beyond kind of that, I've got other kind of more kind of call them fun things. Like I'd love to do a TED Talk. That's my thing. I'm like one day I'm calling that TED Talk into existence. I'd love to write a book.
Coming soon.
Well, it'd be good to know.
Would you like to see the Humble Penny book, guys?
Would you love for us to write a book? It'd be good to know. Let us know in the comments if that sounds like something that will really be exciting for you guys.
Let us know.
We'd love to create our own products, our own merch. So, but we want to do it properly. We want it to be really intentional. We'll have physical products, the things that really speak to us and speak to our community. And we've talked about foundation earlier, so thinking about potentially a different entity entirely. We're calling it at the moment the Humble Penny Foundation, but with a mission of strategically working with other partners to enable certain other things to happen for other people.
Yes.
Then there's juniors, so it's the humble penny kids / juniors. So we're thinking about our children and that next generation. How can we speak to that generation and stuff like that? How can we help them have an entirely different money journey compared to kind of what we might have gone through or what their parents might have gone through?
Exactly.
So it's quite a lot, like a lot of things. Like when I think about when you say ultimate financial goal, it actually goes beyond finance. It's now about impact.
Exactly.
And just purpose and kind of just enabling things to happen.
Yeah.
Which is very different to the journey I kind of took off on as an accountant.
Exactly.
But I'm just kind of glad that
different.
that's become a dream that we have as a result of me starting off this journey as an accountant.
Yeah. So people wondering, like, what do people who are financially independent get up to? Like, we do a lot.
There's a lot going on.
It's purposeful stuff that we do that we like doing and we enjoy.
We love doing.
So it's amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin. That was amazing.
This feels weird.
I know, because this is like my first ever kind of interview that I'm doing. Or first ever time.
You've been fantastic. Thanks for interviewing me.
You were amazing. Well done.
Okay.
Awesome.
You've been fantastic. So thanks for interviewing me. And it's just been great doing it, just having this format. We really hope you guys have enjoyed it. You know,
we hope you enjoyed it,
it's
guys.
It's a bit of a long one, but we just wanted to use that as an opportunity to share a bit more of things that might fill in some gaps in various videos that we've created to some extent.
We hope we covered everything, but if we didn't, guys, let us know in the comments. We will be in the comments for an hour after this video has published to answer all your questions straight away. So we'll be waiting in the comments. Let us know if there's anything that you feel that we could have elaborated on a bit more, but we didn't really want this interview to go on for long because it really could have. There's so many more questions that I really could have asked Ken, but we wanted to keep it a bit short and within time. So, and
also, if you were inspired by this video, let us know what really inspired you, what really occurred to you as you watched it. Jump in the comments, and like Mary said, we're going to be in there, just making sure we respond to you and that we have a true conversation, because our goal here really is to build a true and genuine community, and ultimately we want to be able to get to know you guys. In the ideal world, we'll be out there having a picnic and meeting you guys and just getting to know you as friends. So make sure you jump in the comments and let's just get talking about this journey. But thank you so much for watching today's video. We hope you really enjoyed it. Don't forget to hit the like, share button, and don't forget to subscribe and support us here at The Humble Penny. Guys, thank you so much for watching today's video.
Thank you, guys.
And as ever, in all things, be thankful and seek joy. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah.